It's react time. We haven't reacted in a while. We got a Space Tomato video that I was told is very positive. So I'm here to... No, I'm just kidding. But this is true. And has it been 8 years? So for me, it's been 9. Because I went to the office and they like whiteboarded what server meshing would look like and stuff. It was pretty wild. Way back. But Alpha 4.0 is Star Citizen's biggest update yet. Wasn't 3.23 the biggest update yet? And then it's got the RSI Zeus and server meshing. So I think he's just saying what's coming up in 4.0.
That's a very, very important part, the 11th pillar. And the last...
Oh, yeah, I got to shit on this right away. That was 2018, and the whole theme of this talk was all of this was coming soon. I can't give you a date, but yeah, but it's really soon.
One is server meshing. So when we get server meshing, that is, we think, the last piece of the puzzle to have the full game experience. Right now, we have about 50 players on a server. With server meshing, we'll be able to get to thousands of players playing concurrently in the same locations, star systems. They're not all going to be able to have 1,000 people dogpiling together. They won't be able to render it all at the same time, but you certainly will be able to have, 1,000 people on the planet of Hurston, for instance.
Okay, so I was not planning on crapping on this, but it's hard not to, just for what we know so far. And I am overly positive about this situation. We did test, guys. We did test 600 players, 800 players, and we had 5-minute, and I am not exaggerating, 5-minute interaction delays. The server took 5 minutes to realize what was going on. I jumped off a roof, survived, walked around for 5 minutes, and randomly died because the server finally realized I jumped off a roof, right? So there were a ton of problems with the last server meshing test. For me, I am not looking forward to the fact that they said 4.0 is the next patch. I am looking forward to one thing and one thing only in regards to 4.0. Whenever the next server meshing playtest is, what does it feel like, right? Did they resolve those situations? And if they did, I am feeling as positive as Chris Roberts here, right? If they resolved a lot of those situations, if we are doubling, tripling, quadrupling, 8 times, 10 times the amount of players in a server, what are the experiences we're going to have? It's going to get crazy. Remember how the game just feels super empty, right? You know how you play it and you just kind of feel like you're playing by yourself unless you're playing with your friends. You don't really feel like you're around anybody else. Sometimes you see people at an outpost, or you see the remnants of ships around, but you don't see the people that often. That will likely change. Like, we only have 2 star systems. If they actually do something crazy and are able to fix the issues that we had, which generally you have to feel positive about, but this is Star Citizen. Why would they put 4.0 in the next patch if they didn't think they could? Right? But again, this is Star Citizen, right? Even with 1,000 players, 2 whole star systems are going to feel empty. I just have a hard time agreeing with that. It will feel empty, yes, but it won't feel as empty as the game that we have now. Right? You're a pirate. You're going to just have more hits than you ever had before. You're not going to know what to do with all the hits that you had, no matter how far we're spread apart in the 2 star systems, because it's 10 times the players, right? 10 times the players, double the play space. Do the math, right? It's just going to be better.
So the server meshing is the last key piece, because that will allow us to have a truly massively populated universe. In terms of what we would think as the experience when you guys can sit in and play the game, when we get to full persistence and server meshing, that's our marker. That's our marker.
Oh, God, Tomato. That is their marker to start making it. if we get server meshing, like I am in somewhat agreement with what Chris is saying, but I think I'm not in agreement with the way the video is being framed, because server meshing comes in, the game, we're not playing the game yet. It's time to start making the game. Like, this has been the blocker to making the game since I've been following it. This has been the blocker, right? So I will keep watching. But it's obviously a React video. So I initially, like, that is my initial thoughts. I blurt them out of my mouth the moment I feel them, and that's what I felt right there. It's not the marker where we get to start playing the game as much. It's the marker that they get to start making it, right? Because from 2016 until now, they have been putting off actual, I guess, big development of the game for that, right?
This was CitizenCon 2018, 2 whole years after 4.0 was announced as Star Citizen's long-term goal. And after 8 years of waiting, so many delays I refuse to count, and many missed predictions, the goal is within reach, along with the single most important feature to the game's success: server meshing. The necessary step to an actual MMO, huge performance improvements across the game, and the improved performance of many other systems. But that's not all that.
We'll see about that.
That's included.
Hopefully.
6 new planets and 6 new moons fall under the jurisdictions of gangs and militias. Ships will run on physicalized components and life support systems, and towns with localized gameplay will be added to the game. Much like 3.0 all those years ago and 2.0 before it, this will be a paradigm shift for players, and the beginning of a new phase in Star Citizen's development. But
I hope that's true. I will say I didn't exactly feel the same way that I felt the first time I walked up in 2.0. I walked out of the station, I looked to the right, and Crusader was there, and you felt the scale of the video game you were playing. 3.0 didn't do that. I think 3.4 did that. The first time you kind of like took off at Hurston maybe a little bit. But the paradigm shift, I hope, is less location-based, the size of the game based, and more the amount of players you're interacting with. I really hope that's the paradigm shift, but we'll see. There's no doubt that it's going to be a big shift. It's going to feel different, right? It's going to feel better in some ways if it doesn't feel worse. I obviously made that video like I was wrong on my main channel. I do believe this patch is going to be very buggy, lots of issues, lots of problems, right? And things like that. Who cares about locations anymore? I don't. I mean, honestly, one of the more interesting things are going to be the way they handle locations, missions. Well, I just basically just locations and missions, because missions are tied to locations, but when you 10 times the player base, which has got to be somewhere near their goal, no one's ever going to have missions to do because there's not enough locations to cover that. So I'm curious what they end up doing. It should be interesting, but we'll see. We'll see.
But it's a technology-focused update, and you remember what happened the last time we waited for one of those. Delays and stuff. That said, I do think we'll see it in the PTU.
I mean, didn't they say that the patch that we're playing now is more, I guess, more of a change than what 3.18 was, maybe, or what 4.0 would be? Like, this is like what we're playing now is the big kind of cornerstone of server meshing. The two of those together, essentially, is the persistence and the replication layer. Like, guys, I was doing salvage panels, and I got a replication layer recovery, and it came back. Took a little while. It came back, and the panels were there. The game knew that they were there, and it did it. Like, do we need anything else? I don't think we need much more other than just being able to go between them. That's all.
At least this summer. I'll explain why, what's in the update that'll change the game
In terms of like the tech side, do we need anything else? We had a ton of things, obviously.
for you, and why it's all really about the defining technology that is server meshing. This is your early preview of Star Citizen 4.0. Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk.
And this is an early preview of it. There are going to be a ton more things that are in this patch that never end up on a roadmap, never end up in the patch notes, that we find ourselves, things that are going to be added to the roadmap later, things that are going to be taken off the roadmap. It's going to be, I think this one's going to be a bit of a wild ride. It's always the next patch. That's the Jesus patch. A Star Citizen feature since 2016. Yeah, but this, like, obviously that's been true. Obviously you want the game to grow. Like, imagine like saying that's a bad thing. I don't understand, to be honest. Obviously you want the next patch. You want things to improve. But 4.0 server meshing, that it may not be the best patch, but it might, and it kind of has to be the patch that changes everything to make the game that we're all sitting around hoping they get made. Like we're hoping it gets made. That's it. That's what this patch has to be.
Outposts are expanding in the colonialism archetype, adding larger settlements meant to support localized gameplay and missions. We've seen,
As long as it's not a 318. If it is, it is. If it has to be, it has to be. What if it ends up being a 318? They take some time, they fix it, and hopefully, like, as long as the end result is much better, that if it has to be, it has to be. How much hinges on the success of server meshing? Everything. Everything hinges on the success of server meshing. Everything in terms of their design of the game, the way they want to make their game, the way they set out to make it, everything hinges on this. At least that's what they tell us, right? Star Citizen has been unhinged for a while.
settlements teased as far back as 2020 when
hinges.
colonialism was just a 2D idea. With so much time to cook, we should be seeing some fairly robust new locations in 4.0. And if CIG can add missions to match, they should offer solid new expansion for players willing to traverse the new star system.
I'm not going to shit on it. I'm not going to shit on it. It's too easy. It's the most low-hanging fruit of all time. Yeah, let's go kill quests.
These larger outposts won't be replacing what we already know.
Wow.
The utilitarian-styled outposts in Stanton will likely be updated at some point, but will retain their styling to diversify star systems and locations going forward. We've covered space stations on this channel before too. The first rest stops, the evolution of their interior spaces, only to be outpaced by huge exteriors now feeling a bit disconnected. The next generation of stations arrives with the new star system. Similar utilitarian-style stop-offs as the Stanton system provides, these stations are mostly decrepit, broken down, and largely uninhabited. They will now be defined.
Largely uninhabited. That's interesting, because they felt more inhabited. They felt more like there was more life to them than the current ones. These felt like home to somebody. The marketplace felt busy. I thought that, like, in terms of the way they... It's obvious that it was their next set of stations. It felt like they learned lessons from the previous ones and just made them better, right? Like, the Who Wants Some Noodles thing was, like, really annoying to hear, but at the same time, you felt like it was alive, right? You felt like those areas were really alive. And then on top of that, the fact that there were missions at the locations, that brings me back to like 2017, 2018. Luke Presley talking about EVAing outside of a station and doing something.
By themes and archetypes that will help players better understand what to expect and diversify the experience, similar to what we're seeing with ground locations. For the initial release, they have 26 stations planned. This may sound like a lot for a system like Pyro compared to 24 stations in Stanton, but as I said, several of these stations will be completely or partially abandoned, and many more will be dangerous or only offering services to members that are friendly to their faction.
That is going to be the coolest part, I think. That will be one of the more interesting parts of the game. Right? That will be one of the more interesting parts, I think. I think if they can do this well, building rep with some factions could be very cool, but they have to do it well. We'll
also
see.
Good to remember the system is twice the diameter of Stanton, so everything is much more spread out. Hopefully when these systems do show up, they feel distinctly different than what we have now.
Is that still true? Did anybody here that did the server meshing test? I think they shrunk it a bit. I think they shrunk it quite a bit. So as far as like the lore and things like that, it's not as big. There are a ton of stations. So the whole, like, remember your Starfarer is refueling is for Pyro? It might be if we go back to that reputation thing. So if you are, let's say, doing, I don't know, like we only ever really have kill quest or fetch quest missions. So if you're doing kill quests, like I see like the Rough and Ready logo. If you're doing kill quests for Rough and Ready, you're probably going to one of the other gang's areas. So if you're doing kill quests there and you run out of fuel, you likely won't have any stations to refuel at, perhaps. So you might actually be far from somewhere. So reputation might tie into that aspect and be cool, but we'll have to see.
The Pyro system itself.
Yes, they shrink it from 26 AU to 20. Okay, so it still is double, and that's what Tomato said. So, yeah, cool. I think that was always going to happen, by the way, simply for the fact that how much can they stuff in, how big can the systems actually be, and not have too many issues, all that stuff, right? So the fact that it shrunk is no surprise. They have to figure out what their limits were, essentially.
Is coming in Alpha 4.0 with all this included. It'll be our first new system in 9 years, dating back to Alpha 2.0 in 2015.
Double is still plenty big.
It brings with it 6 new planets and 6 new moons, a pulsing star that sends out destructive waves of solar energy every so often, and a host of new factions that govern the space differently than what we've known so far. This is Star Citizen's Frontier, an unclaimed system where everything goes.
It's everywhere as Grimhex.
If you know the right people and whose turf you're on. Rather than corporations, this system is run by gangs and unaffiliated groups who withhold services, guns, and shelter from enemies while treating their friends well. This system is going to be a playground for the reputation system that recently began seeing more development.
Yeah.
It'll offer an improved experience building rep with groups to angle your way into specific missions and opportunities, and with a more lax and segmented system of laws and rules, you'll be able to experiment and take part in gameplay that may be more frowned upon in the starting system.
Now, the thing that I get from this video is I don't think we are going to get any of the mechanics as in depth as they seem in this video. So all of this stuff is going to happen after 4.0 releases in my mind, and there's nothing wrong with that. I very much feel like 4.0, just the server meshing aspect needs to be the focus. I think if we learned a lesson from 3.23, piling in so much on top of a major tech update, that's how we ended up with cargo being so late. That's how we ended up with dupe bugs that they knew about but didn't fix. That's how we ended up with a lot of issues, right? So, and this is probably going to come around Invictus launch week, no? Somewhere around there would be my guess. So if that's the case, it's going to be forced out again for a ship sale. So my hope is that we get to see the future of IAE, not Invictus launch week. Obviously, we're in Invictus launch week. My hope is that we get to envision what the future might be like through the 4.0 patch, but not pile in the content as much. I think immediately after that, even if it's a 4.0.1, start adding content, right? 4.1, add content, so on and so forth. Smaller, more incremental gameplay updates after that, once you have your framework, and then you optimize server meshing from there, right? And dynamic and so on and so forth. So we'll see what happens, but my hope for 4.0 is it isn't as Jesus patches tomatoes making it seem, and it is we are finally standing on solid ground patch. That's what I want. I want to feel like we are not a sinking ship anymore, you know?
There's a lot coming with the
on
Pyro
water
system that we'll
every
go over
patch. You
later in the
never
quarter.
know.
By release, we should have an even better idea of how it might actually change your gameplay. And of course, we're going to have to talk about the factions you'll encounter there. Xenothreat is an
4.0 feels like what other games call beta? Absolutely not. No, I think you have no understanding of what that word actually means. Alpha games, you're still proving out your gameplay. There is no resemblance of a beta anytime soon, right? It's the beta of their tech, maybe, but it is not the beta of their game, right? Hopefully this opens up the door that they can start making the game. Beta's about content. No, it's, oh my God, no, it's not. Okay. What do you guys really think beta is? This is funny to me. Beta could be about adding the content. Like maybe you're right about that, but you don't have any content because you don't have any features. Right? So you need to have the features in order to inform making the content, right? So like building upon the features to make cool content that you have. We do see that a little bit with the stuff that we have, like salvage missions and stuff, right? But you don't have enough of the careers. You like we heard that Bounty Hunter V2 is not in the game, right? It's not in development, I should say. And if it's not in development, how are we talking beta? If we don't have base building, how are we talking about beta, right? Yeah, beta typically means content complete and you're done, right? Not even feature complete, content complete. So that's been my understanding. And we're going to argue semantics here. The people in the comments are going to as well. Don't bother because it doesn't matter. Right? I'm just sharing my opinion, and my opinion is very simple. It's the gameplay isn't there yet, so we shouldn't be talking about beta. And they are very much, I think 1.0 is beta, right? Like what they're driving towards there is a short beta of a 1.0 and then go live with it kind of thing. So that's what it sounds like. And it's not going to be content complete. It's going to be minimum viable product content complete. That's what 1.0 will be. It's the minimum they can do to say we did it, and we'll see what happens there. There's nothing wrong with that. It may sound like I'm saying that negatively. There's nothing wrong with that. This allows them to get us to beta. That's how I see it.
obvious one is
like there's no negativity here from this. It may sound that way, but I have no negativity towards this. It's just my reality. I just don't see it that way.
this is where the attacks on Stanton have already been coming from, but we'll begin interacting with them as possible standers by outpost occupants and even store clerks depending on if you align with them. The headhunters are also in Pyro, more of a Mad Max kind of looking group that we've heard about so many times. I'll be glad when they're finally in the game. We don't know much about them other than their looks and location though, and distinctly their info at CitizenCon did not say that we could gain reputation with them.
I just got so upset. I'm going to be negative for a little while. I'm going to be negative for about 30 seconds. Let me get this one out of my system. They had an SCL or an ISC or a calling all devs. I can't remember what it was. It might have been calling all devs. It's so old that it might have been a calling all devs, where they brought a developer on from the narrative team who said he was going to be the mission giver guy, who said they were going to do more narrative stuff. And then that really never happened, right? We have the Dusters. They stand there and die unless you shoot at them, and they have some cool armor. That's another post-server meshing thing I really hope we start to see, and I think most people would agree. Different voice lines, story lines with them, right? Yeah, apparently Overdrive was narrative stuff. If that's narrative, I don't know what else. But
and there's the Rough and
my
Ready
30
group,
seconds are
a
up. I move
faction
on.
that tends to frequent the stations of Pyro, offering services to those they are friendly
More lore in the game and not on the website, please. That's all I'm saying.
with, and using tattoos as a way of denoting rank and status. Through allying with them and running missions, they'll offer you
Please.
exclusive tattoo designs for your character as well. There are also the Citizens for Pyro, an unaffiliated group who wants to expand the non-outlaw population in Pyro until it can become a part of the human government.
I love those
They
armors
just
that they
may
wear.
use outlaw behavior to do it. After these groups, there are the Overlords and the Fire Rats, which are two additional Pyro gangs that we still haven't seen confirmed since last CitizenCon. It would be a disappointment to see the system launch without all the factions, so we'll see if they're added between now and then.
I don't think it needs to. If anything, it only needs to launch with 2. And we should be testing out what it's like to build rep with one and lose rep with another. I'm okay if it's... I'm okay if 4.0 is not a huge patch. I really stand by that. I just hope it's a really good testing patch that you can envision the future of the game. We don't really know what the future of the game looks like. This is one of the patches that are going to help that happen.
While all of this would have been possible without server meshing, as anytime a player used the new jump point feature, the game could probably just transition you to a new server, the transition becomes a lot more seamless with the tech. This will be felt by players through the game continuing inside of jump points, as you have to steer your ship through the wormhole and into the new system or risk something happening to you. We don't really know yet. But server meshing's real strength comes from that seamless transition. The ability to move a player between two servers without a noticeable pause in their motion, those around them, their ship, or even the gunshots being fired on board a ship traveling between two servers.
Now, I saw some people have very good experiences. Burke said he did. I think Greasy did. My experiences on the server lines were not as good. Every time my shields went down, my QT drive stopped, and I had a lot of weird issues. But most of my issues were related to the planet spinning, outside of that QT turning off thing. But some people did some really cool stuff, shooting across them at other ships and things like that. So yeah, again, cannot wait to see the next test.
This is the milestone that held Star Citizen 4.0 back from release in 2021, 2022, and 2023.
It's held the entire game back. Everything about the game is being held back by this. Everything.
The primary reasons for such bad performance in the game. NPCs not responding much? It's likely the server's not running well. Your ship just randomly exploded? Probably the server didn't load an obstacle that the game knew to be there. And on. Server performance really hurts this game. And when one star system can be split into 10 different servers instead of one, the experience and player cap should improve drastically. And while this isn't the actual pie-in-the-sky goal of dynamic server meshing, this will be likely the biggest milestone Star Citizen has ever hit to date.
Yes,
so I look forward to seeing how it's involved in 4.0. If you want to know more about this feature, you can check out my 2 recent videos covering...
I mean, guys, honestly, if they doubled the server count in just the Stanton system, right? If we never get Pyro and they doubled the server count, that would be a milestone. If they went through this very slowly, it wouldn't be great. But yeah,
the topic and the successful public player tests that happened earlier this year. And don't forget the mission and transit system refactors that are also planned to come with server meshing in 4.0. These are way more important than they may seem, as once these systems are purpose-built for their underlying infrastructure, that is, server meshing, I think we can expect them to run much better and way more consistently than they ever have before. But
they'll still be annoying as hell, though, but yes, he's 100% right. I think we have the developer, both developers, I think, are in chat that worked on the system. The one that's fixing the previous one's problems, and the one who put in the Band-Aid that fixed it the first time. So it has been a bane of both of their existences, I believe. is the Metro. So yeah,
I want to be clear, while this is a "we've finally made it" sort of update, it's still just step 1 of server meshing. The
it took 8 minutes to get to the point where he was like, "This is not the Jesus."
lofty goals and
patch.
game-changing performance improvements that define
How are me and Tomato agreeing, but only at 8 minutes in?
this game will still be a process to achieve. 4.0 is just the first time that process has been able to actually start.
I think it's so funny how we all have such unique perspectives.
Engineering and life support are such big topics, I won't get into them too deeply here. Stay tuned for another video on them soon, or check out my deep dives and recent gameplay on the other channels. These two systems though are a big part of expanding multi-crew gameplay by encouraging more non-combat oriented teamwork on ships and in vehicles, and also
Oh, it's combat oriented
So
for
limiting
now, at least,
ships in
because the tests are all based off of when things explode. But the current engineering experience is very combat
the
focused.
range, crew size, and risk factor. Everything from
Mike never lets people cook. It's a fucking React video.
power management to gravity control to HVAC
If I didn't stop and say what I thought in the moment I thought it, why would I ever make a React video? Why would I ever do this?
customization will be an option with these systems. You'll be able to decide whether you want to fight fires with an extinguisher or vent the room of oxygen, losing your own precious supply. You can choose to run your ship on the bare essentials, or you can pre-tune your ship to run overclocked as you fly around the system.
That you will not be doing. So maybe this is this script was made before, but the battery system is not going to exist. So it's not going to make it into 4.0, they said.
You can break onto somebody else's ship and sabotage their systems from the inside, or you can knock out components and shut a ship down without it blowing up. This is another part of the more group-focused gameplay that is finding its way into Star Citizen as higher player counts and larger ships begin to become a reality. On top of that, in the long term, ships won't explode when they're beaten. They will simply be disabled through engineering components, allowing people to either call for help or be boarded. Dating
We'll see about that too. Is they still want explosions, but they want it to be a choice. It'll be an interesting one. I think we're still going to be exploding occasionally, but we'll have to see how they end up going about it. I think it'll be power plant related.
back as
was
early
always
as
the idea.
2013 in concept, engineering is part game balance, part multi-crew catalyst, and all about
Thank you,
focusing
Medic,
on the
and
most
others.
important part of the game, the ships. That being said, you'll eventually find it in stations, outposts, and cities as well, just not in 4.0. Also keep in mind, this is not going to have as big an impact on smaller ships as you may think, so don't panic.
Why don't they make hard death really difficult for now? Give soft death ships 1 billion HP? I don't know. I would prefer that way, but I'm sure they have their reasons. And honestly, we'll just let them go like that. In my mind, I'm just patiently waiting and watching things grow. But I am not going to get overly excited patch on patch about certain things. Like, I can get overly excited about little individual things. I'm super excited about the hangar update coming. But I'm more excited to be like, so what is it? You know? Why not be excited? Because I've been around for 12 years and I know better. That's why.
For a while now, we've known charge and drain functionality was planned for the game. The progress tracker shows as much, but it showed development ending a while ago. Without warning, it's been scheduled for the next update, providing multi-tools the ability to charge and drain power from objects in the game. Many items in the game will run on batteries and portable generators. This, combined with the resource network that drives engineering gameplay, should mean there will be systems and ships, space stations, towns, outposts, caves, and other locations that will react to you power balancing the system.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is that on SCL, Torsten said that they are they integrated into game dev and are forcing everybody to use this system now. So if you're making a new outpost, I think you're using this system. If you're making a new ship, it must use the system, the resource network stuff.
Shutting things off, starting them back up, and
then it's all about the big push of getting everything that used to be in the game or that was in the game, working with it as well.
interacting more with the environment is the goal here. But we'll have to wait and see just how pervasive this will be in the game. Early signs tease the ability.
Space Tomato reminds you of how streamers used to be like 10 years ago when they still had hopes and dreams in a game. I think Tomato is more focused on the game's development and is there any time that's more exciting than 4.0 actually coming out if you're really big into Star Citizen's development? That's why this video seems incredibly positive, right? I am not caring about the game's development whatsoever. I care about the progress of the actual gameplay and things like that. How will this impact that? For me, this patch opens the door for them to start doing it. But the underlying tech is not what I'm interested in, right? And yeah, some people are just generally more positive than others. I mean, look at Croncy versus me on the podcast, right? He's just like, well, whatever, it's cool, and I'm like, just people are different.
Ability to remove distortion damage from components as well, which will make this a key development for mechanic engineers on ships looking to keep their ship.
Yeah, tomatoes good. He does put in the reality check stuff. I think in the beginning of the video, he was a little like, this is the best patch ever kind of thing. Like, I mean, look at the title, right? It's like they just said this about 323, Are we going to say this in every video? But that's the YouTube game right there. This is the title that gets people outside of Star Citizen to watch your video. You know what I mean?
Operational during battle. But it also hints at overclocking systems, which could be part of the gameplay plan.
I think it's just him being good at YouTube. But the content of the video, I raged from here to about here.
For the tuner engineer, the person who wants to set up ship systems pre-flight to make sure everything runs at 110%. Overall, it's a relatively small feature with potentially big impacts. After 323's major UI update, we can only be hungry for more. And it looks like in 4.0, more of those CitizenCon updates we saw will grace ships in-game. This means the updated, more streamlined HUD will be applied to all ships, adding to your visibility. This will also start to make it possible for each ship manufacturer to have their own HUD design. We've seen many looks at Aegis, but we've also gotten quick looks at potential Drake HUDs that overall got me excited for the customization.
I gotta say, I'm not sure too many people asked for this, and I think way more people just wanted to customize their own. And I think the big feature that comes with this may not be a part of 4.0, but the ability to customize your visor was a thing at CitizenCon. I don't think they're talking about it very much, but the customizability that also came with the system, at least how they explained it at CitizenCon, to me was the most exciting. Not the actual UI update in general. So, yeah, that would be nice.
Then there are the MFDs, your multi-function displays, which will now be able to be pinned, saved on a per-ship basis, customized to your heart's content, and streamed onto your helmet view so you don't have to keep looking at the screens. In addition, using these MFDs, your ship-specific key bindings can be set and saved, screen functionality can be customized, and about 100 key bindings have been added to allow better navigation and use, similar to what you'd find in Elite Dangerous. This is part of the ongoing effort to update all UI in Star Citizen to use their own system and pick up the quality of the game overall. The Zeus is the newest series of ships in the certified Fresh Zone. That's what I'm calling all the 2 to 4 person ships between 25 and 60 or so meters in length. I'll be covering this group of ships in a later video, but know the Zeus ES is a perfect example of this class. Coming in at 45 meters in length, this is a 3-person ship with good shielding, robust scanning and radar capabilities, and adequate interior for long trips, and some cargo space for transportation and some possible light trading. Overall, this looks set to be one of the best small to medium daily driver general purpose ships meant for a multitude of gameplay styles.
This is the Drake Ironclad. This is like the Zeus is to the Cutlass, Freelancer, and everything else in its class as the Drake Ironclad is to every cargo hauler. Right? It just comes down to they know what a good ship is now. They did not know what a good ship is. Oh, yeah, Connie, right? This is actually Connie Killer, excuse me. They know what a good ship is now. So I really feel like from layout to performance to looks to functionality, they just get it.
For that reason, it'll likely be...
Isn't a Connie a bit bigger than the Zeus? Yeah, I think this is a Cutlass-sized ship, right? But when you put it all together, it might legitimately be better to interact with, I think. I thought this was Connie-sized. I don't know anything about the ships. I literally don't care anymore because this is what happens all the time, is they just get better and better and better. So I don't think there's really a sense in like getting hooked on any one in particular at the moment. Is it MSR size? People like the Connie for its large DPS. Okay, that's cool. I mean, it's just, yeah. It's going to change, you know? And they're going to keep making better ones as they figure out what a good ship is. It took them a really long time to figure out what a good ship is, and for a good reason. Zeus is C1 sized. So that's about Cutlass sized, no? Or I guess Freelancer Max in terms of cargo space. Right? I think I'm just looking at cargo space. I don't know about length. Does that even matter, right? It's just what role does this fill? And what ships will you melt when this comes out? You know what I mean? And yeah, it's a very interesting. It's almost like architecture in a way. Like we're going through a new period in architecture or something. Where's morphologists when you need them? Like everything is changing about the way they build the ships. They're just doing it more efficiently, better, and understand the what works and what doesn't. So every ship that comes out seems better than the last ones. And that's why they kind of have to do these MK2 things. And I feel like that's why they have to retire ships as well. But I wish they gave the better version when they retired them. But yeah, here
one
we
of the
are.
more common ships you see out there. I'll have more to say about it in the lead up to 4.0, as I'm quite a fan of what it stands for, though the jury's still out on the looks. Meanwhile, the other two ships in this series will come in the following updates.
Beautiful.
So just this one scheduled for 4.0. This is probably the least consequential addition on the list, besides the additional character features we aren't really covering, but cows still matter. After the first full-function fauna, the Copion being more of a predatory animal, the next will be the Kazi Grazer, or space cow. It's a seed animal that is often used as part of the ecosystem terraforming process on new planets in human space. For this reason, it'll likely be the most common animal we see in the game, showing up on farms, in villages and towns, in the wild, and in some dishes. Jeez. Each full-function fauna added will essentially be an NPC, so behaviors, timelines, and interactions with others whenever the system can actually handle computing all of that will hopefully be visible in this patch or shortly after.
Hopefully the system can. That's the other thing, man. The other thing in Star Citizen's history is the moment they have bandwidth, they fill it to the brim. And then you still have shitty server FPS because they keep just trying to push the game further and further and optimize later. Obviously, they optimize during it. We've seen it throughout the patch notes so much. But that has been the history. Are they going to do that with 4.0? I hope not, but it also kind of needs it, right? What did I say earlier about the fact that if we get 800 players, there might not be enough locations to fill content for us?
Some other things that currently aren't listed but might be included in this update just based on my own hunches include the new quantum travel system, which brings with it quantum boost, the ability to short jump in any direction, and improved effects, UI, and controls. Then there is the quantum economy simulation, which we know will have a Star Citizen Live episode this quarter, so that could point towards more progress on the implementation.
Star Sim. They're changing the name 100%. Star Sim.
Of it in 4.0. Then there are investigation missions, which have been on the back burner for a while after being introduced at CitizenCon 2022. These could bring some more much-needed narrative.
These are not happening, no chance.
And diverse gameplay to the game. There are still several first-person features that we haven't seen: item wear and tear, player sliding, FPS scan and radar, radiation damage, more interaction improvements, and a couple of new weapons. There's really no knowing what
Bro, there is a guy that every single time the patch comes out, he posts where is the Volt weapon and then just posts images of the Volt. Every single patch. It's almost as bad as the Wii U guys. Remember the Wii U guys? This guy's worse.
Else we could see in the
But
lead
in a
up to
good
the
way. I want the Volt as well, obviously. It's funny, but
big update, but you can be sure that in between now and the update, things will change a bit.
every patch without fail.
This is a big update. The features are fairly significant in what they can bring to the game for all players, but the only guarantee here is server meshing. After 8 years of waiting from the announcement, a huge milestone has been reached, and Star Citizen's development will inevitably take a new direction just as it did after 3.0.
Yes.
Nobody really knows what direction that will be, but I imagine it'll have more to do with in-depth missions, base building, crafting, and other things that players might consider
Making the
late game,
game.
along with polishing up systems and building out the professions. And again, I want to stress the benefits of server meshing will ultimately take some time, but 4.0 could be the beginning of the end for Star Citizen in alpha. If you'd like to get high quality updates
I think that's a fair assessment. Do you guys think that that's super copium or anything? I think that that's it could. First off, he says it could be. It doesn't say it is, but I think that that's like a fair assessment. If 4.0 comes out and it is doing what Chris said at the beginning, thousands of players, then yeah, you're probably good. No, that's not Sandy. That's a Squadron 42 character. She looks very similar to Sandy though in game. But no, that's not Sandy. I forgot Anna Mitra or something like that.
on what's going on, you can subscribe here.
Rona Mitra,
You'll also
yeah.
see weekly feature updates from me, live streams multiple times a week, and more content on my long forum channel Space Tomato 2 and my new gameplay channel. If you'd like to support me and my wife doing all of this, you can also get exclusive higher quality updates every month, or even your referral code in our referral code randomizer under every video.
I like that he says that because they are a team.
By becoming a supporter here on YouTube or over on Patreon. Whatever you do decide, I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll catch you in the next.
Good video. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of what 4.0 could be at the beginning, and I'm definitely just more of what I want it to be is just focus on the tech, stabilize the tech. Do not deliver. Honestly, do not deliver another 323. Do not put us in the situation where we are in PTU for months because you can't get things stabilized because there's too many things, right? Just get that paramount feature figured out and build around it after, right? That's all I care about. Have what we currently have, work with that. It doesn't need to be me jumping into 4.0 and going, this is the greatest thing of all time. Because guess what? Jumping from one system to another, I already did it. It's amazing. And everybody should feel that feeling for the first time. And that's all this patch needs. That's all this patch needs. And then you have the little underlying things that you could do, like, oh, okay, well, you can mine things in Pyro that are worth a lot in Stanton, and you can buy or mine things in Stanton that are worth a lot in Pyro, and then there's this trade that happens, right? When did I jump? There was a server meshing test that involved jump points in Evocati. I'm allowed to talk about it. I can't show it to you. Cross-system missions, maybe. Yeah, like, who knows? But that type of stuff is all I need, right? And then it really comes down to what's the server FPS? What do the AI look like? How are they acting? And how many players are in a server, right? And then you have all the answers you need to start building the game. I do not see a need to pile on 4.0 and make it this thing that it doesn't need to be. It needs to prove that Star Citizen is possible, and that's it. It doesn't need to prove that Star Citizen is here. It needs to prove that it's possible. You have to shut down all the negativity around this game by just showing that you did it. That's it. Right? That's it. It's that simple. That's where my positivity is. That's where all my things are, is that's what this patch needs to be. It doesn't need to have 30 other things on top of it and be like, here's the game, right? It's just that simple. Oh, I'm not saying it's simple. I'm saying don't add additional complexity onto something that's already so complex, right? That's what I'm saying. Think about what they're already adding. You're asking the engineering guys and the ship guys to somehow deal with master modes and engineering at the same time. That's way too much. You have the transit stuff and the mission guys fixing a huge problem that has existed forever, right? Is, you know, when a server crashes, your missions are gone. That's a lot of missions to go through and fix, right? And the transit system has been a mess forever. So I'm imagining, and I think DJ's even said it in chat, it has to be from the bottom up built, right? So that's going to be a time consuming thing and probably really difficult. The reputation system is probably not going to be there right away, but hopefully in a small way it is. And yeah, we just have to see that it's possible right now. I don't think you need to actually experience it in a 4.0. You just have to prove that it's possible and then go out and do it, right? Then take your time, but hurry up and go out and do it, right? So that's how I feel. I am also very positive. I just don't think this needs to be the biggest update yet. The Jesus patch, all of these things. I think it just needs to be server meshing. That's it. That's it.